There is nothing more evocative than the sound of the lion's roar. Above all others, it is the sound of Africa, conjuring up vast frontiers, infinite starscapes, and the golden majesty of these iconic social cats lording it on the plains. Lions have stalked the planet for millennia, both exciting our imaginations and chilling our blood. I simply cannot imagine Africa without them. And yet, in the last 70 years, they have become extinct in the north, endangered in the west, and are classed as vulnerable across the rest of their range. In the whole of Asia, just one small isolated population remain in the Gir forest of India. To me, this loss is more than terrible, it is more than outrageous. It's sacrilegious. Yet, like so many other species, the future of these extraordinary cats relies increasingly on human will and sentiment. Which is why it is always a pleasure, year after year, to come here to Ireland to see the incredible hard work and dedication of both the organisers and the supporters of the Future for Nature Award, who work so hard to keep young conservationists on the front line in defence of the wild world. My own love of life and elephants comes from filming them in the Mara in their own natural habitat. I had one pride in particular who became so habituated to my Land Rover that they would crawl right underneath it in the midday sun and then fall asleep, which was always rather awkward after a while when he needed to go for a pee. In fact, the pride male decided I was so much part of the furniture that he thought I'd make rather a good marking post. And one day he backed up against my vehicle and sprayed urine all over the canvas of the filming door, dangling his tail flirtatiously in my lap the whole while. It took months to get rid of the smell, but secretly I was enormously pleased to have been claimed as part of his territory. Of course, if you're a Maasai herder relying entirely on your cattle for survival, then the presence of lions is more likely to make you reach for your spear and lay an ambush. Unfortunately, captive livestock make tempting prey, and lions are notoriously lazy. Retaliatory killing is one of the main reasons why lions are in such trouble today. And finding ways for lions and people to live in harmony is a major challenge, but it's one that has been picked up successfully by one of our winners today. For me, there is nothing quite like being in the middle of a rainstorm in Africa to appreciate the power and beauty of nature. There's something about the clash of massive thunderheads colliding above one's head, and the wild cry of a zebra, and the scent of fresh rain on baked earth that is truly humbling, that leaves one awestruck, exhilarated, in a moment, and electrically alive. How does one measure this sense of freedom of the soul in the tumult of a wild storm as an indicator of happiness? Because I know that it is important. In such a deluge, it's easy to cast one's mind eye and slide down the globe to the Southern Ocean, where wandering albatross ride the surge of tempestuous storms that spin endlessly and icily around the Antarctic continent. Howling gales build monstrous waves that are 3 stories high, that stretch from horizon to horizon. While the lion may have mastery over the African plain, in the south it is the albatross that is the king, the regent of the wild storms, soaring up to 1,000 kilometers in one day without once flapping its wings. This graceful sweeping flight, scything through furious winds to skate endlessly across the ever-shifting mountain tops of freezing grey sea, uses so little energy and soars with such efficiency that the fine nuances of its flight patterns are being studied by aeronautical engineers to design better aircraft. Despite their lonely wandering, albatross are fiercely loyal and mate for life, flying thousands of kilometers to nest on the same barren island with the same mate. And yet, even in a place as remote and inhospitable to humans as the Southern Ocean, man's footprint is heavy. Shards of plastic, the toxic debris of modern life, are often wink invitingly in the deep sea and are often mistaken by albatross as food for their chicks. More lethal still, long-line trawlers with thousands of baited hooks on lines that stretch over a kilometre long kill tens of thousands of birds as bycatch every year by dragging them under the waves. It is a mortality rate that these creatures simply cannot sustain. The poet Coleridge tells of an ancient mariner who kills an albatross and faces a terrible fate. One by one his shipmates die until he's left alone on the open sea. It is a fitting metaphor for the suffering that we would experience in a world without wildlife. This soundscape of a day in the life of an African savannah was recorded by my friend and colleague Chris Watson at the BBC. It's a reminder of the many dimensions of the wild world that we are here to celebrate and that we take so much for granted. As the storm passes, thirsty creatures crawl out of their nooks and crannies to soak up the moisture that will give them life. And from now on, each new hour is marked by a fresh, croaking, burbling chorus of animal life, singing the future into existence. When I hear this natural symphony, I feel like the richest person in the world, bejeweled by the sounds of the night, perfumed by the purest air, and clothed in the soft darkness hung with stars. Surrounded by myriad sentient creatures in all their diversity of hue, scale, colour, leaf, and shimmering skin, my sanity is restored. Frogs are famously sensitive to changes in their environment. They are indicator species, and their well-being is indicative of the health of an ecosystem as a whole. So vibrant frog song assures us that everything is well in the world. But amphibians are in serious trouble worldwide, caught in a perfect storm of habitat destruction, pollution, pesticide, disease, over-harvesting invasive species, and climate change. These natural barometers that provide important ecosystem services are the most endangered group of animals on the planet, with 1/3 of the world's species on the brink of extinction. So what are these indicator species telling us about the health of our planet, and when are we going to sit up and listen? When I hear from my friends that live in Beijing, for example, I'm horrified to hear that they need industrial air filters in their homes 24/7 just so that they and their children can breathe unpolluted air. Others are members of the Bright Moon Society, desperate to clear the smog in their cities simply to see the moon at night. Forget about the stars. I can't help asking if the world hasn't gone stark raving mad if this is the price we are prepared to pay for industrialization and progress. When we talk about loss of biodiversity, it is exactly this twinkly chorus, this natural indicator of our health and well-being, that is so at risk. Together, the wildlife of each natural environment creates a symphony with every animal from the smallest insect to the biggest elephant playing its part. Together, they perform a wonder of interacting harmonies, both in sound and in ecological function. In the midst of this glorious cacophony, the disappearance of the third violin might go unnoticed, but the sound becomes less rich, the ecosystem less robust. And each of these losses unpicks the fabric of life upon which we all depend, and represents a door in the future slamming shut. If left unchecked, what was once an unnoticeable disappearance will become an exponential cascade, and finally lead to silence. But it doesn't have to be this way. We still have time to buck the trend and keep the doors ajar. As the great field biologist George Schaller said, we need to bring morality, ethics, and beauty back into how we talk about conservation. Species are not commodities to be bought, sold, and discarded, or saved only if we consider them useful at present. The use it or lose it mantra heralds a future of poverty and bleakness. So today is a real opportunity for all of us to make a difference. For never has the earth been more in need of champions who are concerned about the future of nature. We have the technological know-how to create a greener, cleaner, sustainable future. But now it is up to us as individuals to make that change. The three young people we are celebrating here are all quite exceptional, bringing together the science, the passion, and the reverence we need to heal our broken relationship with the natural world, and to ensure that those who follow us in generations to come will be able to revel in the full symphony of life. So, without further ado, it gives me great pleasure to now introduce the first of our winners. Bronwyn Marie from South Africa was born in the city, but she had parents who believed firmly in spending as much time as possible in the great outdoors. Teaching her to dive, they introduced her to the beauty of the underwater world, and very quickly she became fascinated by fish. While studying for a degree in ichthyology, a stint on a research vessel set the course of her career. Suffering terribly from seasickness, she crawled up on deck one morning to get some fresh air and came face to face with an albatross. Mesmerized by its effortless flight, Bronwyn was horrified to learn that 15 out of 22 of these extraordinary pelagic birds were on the brink of extinction. She joined the Albatross Task Force and soon became their first female instructor, spending months at sea with commercial fishing fleets, advising on how to reduce seabird bycatch. While her passion is infectious, it's her grit, determination, and pragmatic approach that have made such a difference, reducing incidental killings of seabirds on her watch by 95%. She is thoroughly deserving of this award, which I hope will go a long way towards serving those superb regions of the ocean air.